When it comes to any type of adaptation, I am by no means a pearl-clutching purist. What matters to me in regard to this particular process is that the spirit and themes of the story remain and the characters are done justice. I understand that the mediums of book and film are vastly different, so sometimes changes must be made. And mind you, I've gone through this entire series of novels at least 4 times throughout nearly the last 2 decades, whilst I have viewed my favorite HP motion pictures easily more than 50 times a piece, so I'm well versed in each of these 2 mediums. But when it comes to the Chris Columbus era of this film series, the translation from page to screen is especially faithful, undoubtedly in large part due to the very brief nature of both books 1 and 2. I've been watching this feature, which isn't titled Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, relatively consistently since its 2001 release. I first viewed it at the cinema at the age of 5, at which point my wonderful mother and I were working through the books after having purchased a set of the at the time, 3 available Potter tales from my former daycare center. I retroactively feel some sympathy toward anyone who was forced to babysit my ass once my uncle had gifted me Philosopher's Stone on DVD when I was 6 or so, given the fact that once upon a time, I went through a phase of watching this flick between 2 and 4 times a day. I was already buried in HP merch by the time movie 1 was released on home video, so evidently I've been a Potterhead since day 1. This picture's prologue is subtly mysterious and mystical. The only actual magic we see is the legendary Richard Harris's Albus Dumbledore's use of his Deluminator, while we only view the McGonagall cat to witch transformation via shadow. Okay, there's also Hagrid's flying motorbike, but this fog-filled scene taking place on Privet Drive keeps us appropriately largely in the dark when it comes to the colorful, grand displays of magic that we eventually see, whilst the prologue concludes with a pair of thematic introductions prior to the picture's title card. At first, scene's end, half-giant Hagrid, quietly powerful and wise Albus, alongside the late genius Maggie Smith's stern but caring Minerva, leave a bundled baby Harry on number 7's porch, the home belonging to the dastardly Dursleys. The legendary wizard and witch state that everyone will know his name, so we're dealing with the concept of incidental legacy / surname pressure. The Dursley prevalent portion of this tale provides us classic Cinderella-esque elements and contains utterly spectacular performances. Harry Melling's gluttonous Dudley is brilliantly irritating, authentically so. Fiona Shaw is fucking fantastic in the role of Aunt Petunia. Through her relatively brief screen time, she displays malice, ruthlessness, alongside vulnerability and deep resentment, while the late great Richard Griffiths is perfectly, deliciously vile. Every one of his lines are expertly delivered and nastily articulated. This Dursley clan treats our titular hero like fucking ass. So, thankfully, against those pricks' wishes, Harry is rescued from his wholly miserable life by the aforementioned exceedingly loyal and gentle half-giant Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, portrayed impossibly lovably by the late legend Robbie Coltrane. Practically up until Potter's arrival at platform 9 3/4, Hagrid is our sort of shaman, our guide, as we, alongside Harry, enter into this magical world. Hagrid delivers to us beautifully organic exposition, which creepily informs us of Voldemort's murder of Lillian James Potter, leaving cute little baby Harry behind as the lone survivor, who would eventually be iconically nicknamed the Boy Who Lived. Hagrid also whimsically introduces us to the impeccably designed, by the late fucking sensational production designer Stuart Craig, Diagon Alley, by far the most witch/wizard prevalent location up until this point. It is here that we're gifted a captivating performance featuring a sort of haunting gravitas from the late great John Hurt in the role of Wandmaker Ollivander. This was such a beautifully directed kind of monumental scene, whilst an architectural highlight of this location, which is analyzed and discussed in the Wicked Internet series VFX Artists React, is the Leaning Tower of Gringotts Bank, the grand interior of which introduces us to just one of the characters in this series, played by the great Warwick Davis. An Idiot Abroad, Life's Too Short. Hagrid secretively retrieves what we learn to be the Philosopher's Stone, which really sets into motion the mystery component of this tale, which is a prevalent underlying element in each filmic chapter. Hagrid departs our hero practically right before we fully transition into this magical world. After the introduction of yet another icon, Julie Walters emanates a genuine sense of warmth, even in her brief appearance here, portraying the sweet but feisty Molly Weasley, while the true production-centric directorial risk, if you will, was in casting this colossal collection of kids, primarily our central trio. And although Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint, aka our brave protagonist Harry, brilliant bookworm Hermione, and loyal best pal Ron, certainly grow as actors, by the latter films their collective excellence is undeniably solidified, they all do a really good, impressive job in their first massive outing. I mean, these fuckers were like 10 years old. We're introduced to the Hogwarts castle exterior in chill-inducing fashion. The visual with all of the approaching student-filled boats, it's incredible. Not to mention, this is accompanied by one of the most integral cogs in the HP machine, the truly legendary musical score, composed by one of the all-time greats, Mr. John Williams. This collection of beautiful themes, these are some of the best in cinematic history. They're also utterly inextricable from this particular world. This iconic music is definitely ingrained in pop culture, but we're not simply given bombastic tunes with no substance to annoyingly whistle around the house. These mellifluous pieces, namely the sporadically but suitably incorporated Hedwig's theme, can be big and bold, but they can also strike a very emotional chord, and be, when it so wishes, eerie and or sinister, also somber, contemplative. I mean, when that music swells up at film's end, my fucking eyes swell up. During the banquet in the magnificent Great Hall, we're introduced to the mysterious and complex Professor Severus Snape, portrayed by late legend Alan Rickman. We're also given the rather devious and spiteful Argus Filch, alongside his shabby cat, Mrs. Norris, the former played by brilliant British actor David Bradley, though these particular talents were already seasoned veterans once they agreed to take part in the series. So it feels fitting that I briefly move away from the geriatric, as our main trio are not even remotely close to being the only pretty heavily showcased youngsters. I'm referring to the very talented Tom Felton, who plays sinister Slytherin Draco Malfoy, as well as Matt Lewis's mistreated and underrated Neville Longbottom. The former is seemingly so comfortable on screen from the get-go in portraying this excellently nasty creation. Daniel Radcliffe himself has stated just how exceptional director Columbus was in handling the multitude of little ones on set, though this really shouldn't come as too much of a surprise given the fact that between the years 1990 and 1993, the man helmed a trio of massively successful movies, each of them starring whippersnapper-filled casts, namely 1990's Home Alone, its 1992 sequel, as well as one of my all-time favorite comedies, 93's Mrs. Doubtfire. The bulk of this movie is filled with a wonderful variety of adventure, heart, humor, and a pretty appropriate amount of creepiness and fright. Although some of the CG is objectively a wee bit janky, you know, in the Quidditch department. I've personally never really been bumped by it, nor taken out of the magical experience because of it, though I'm sure I'm particularly biased given my extensive history with the picture, but I mean, I really do think, and have from day one, that Columbus and his surely abundant VFX team did a pretty solid job of using late 90s, early 2000s technology to make all of the broom-flying goings-on pretty exhilarating and immersive, while the design of the Quidditch pitch itself is expectedly wonderful. And I am not a CGI stickler. What matters to me first and foremost is the story, and the effects either work for me and blend into the world at hand, or don't, instinctively so. And essentially the entirety of the series in regard to VFX are pretty seamless to me, except when they're not, during a couple of concise occasions much later in the series, funnily enough. Though if I were to be picky and prickly, I do prefer the more translucent ghosts from the late entries, rather than the kind of plainish, more so black and white inserts were given in 2001. But what are you gonna do? Who gives a shit? It's great. A prevalent, heartfelt component of this tale involves the Mirror of Erised, which, as Albus very gently states, displays only the deepest and most desperate desires of the heart of a given onlooker. It is in instances such as these, during which such themes as death, grief, and longing for love are very quietly dealt with and discussed. After having to confront the screaming book within the library's restricted section, with the assistance, at least, of the Cloak of Invisibility, kind of incidentally facing off against a weak but creepy Voldy in the awesomely fog-ridden Forbidden Forest, then getting saved by Centaur Firenze, and finally, at least for now, taking down the fucking creepo Voldy Quirrell hybrid, our slightly tarnished hero awakens in the hospital wing. Before HP is reunited with his pair of best chums, Dumbledore pays him a particularly lovely visit. The headmaster addresses the night of James and Lily's murder. He says quietly but confidently that what allowed Harry to survive against Lord Voldemort all those years ago was the other prevalent theme, that love conquers all. Before Harry is sent back to the pitiful Privet Drive with an incredibly sweet family photo gifted to him by Hagrid, he reminds his mates that he has truly found a home away from home. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is a delightful doorway into this magical world. It is so sure of what it is, as it dips its British toe into a world far more grim. Now, the kind of stock analysis one delivers when discussing the progression of this run of films is that they grow darker and darker. Some of these folks, though, describe this premiere flick, the first couple even, as quote-unquote childish. But I feel as though childlike is at least a more appropriate word to use here. We're not talking about immature, silly movies, though the beginning of our bespectacled hero's journey certainly, and suitably, does bear more of a sense of innocence than the brilliant batch of films subsequent.